We're in a series called I Think I Love You. Say, I think I love you. You can't turn to your neighbor and say that one. It gets weird if you choose the wrong neighbor, you know what I'm saying? So the Song of Songs is the text that we're in. And the reason why is because even more importantly than what we think about when we think about love or think about singleness or think about dating or sex or marriage or something like that is what does God have to say on the subject? And the good news is there's an entire book of the Bible that talks about these things, and it is a 9th century BC Hebrew poetry, so it's a little bit lost on us, kind of in a modern vernacular. But the good news is we got friends and family, people who study Hebrew and have put the cookies on the bottom shelf, and so we're going to unpack this text together. We started off last week talking about attraction. In chapter 1, there is Solomon, who's a main character, and then the Shulamite woman, his wife-to-be, who is the other main character, and then she's got a girl gang, she's got her friends, squad, and then there's also her brothers, so there's a family in the mix. So community is definitely a part of their romantic story, which we said last week, hey, we would encourage that. But we talked about attraction in chapter 1. Next week, we're going to talk about their wedding day, and we're going to talk about their wedding night next week as well. So just a reminder, Soma kids, okay? Next week, I'm just letting you know, PG-13. So we talked about that last week. We did have some rules for this series. We said, hey, listen for yourself, not for the person sitting next to you, not for your spouse, not, I wish so-and-so was here. This one's for you, okay? And the idea in Matthew 7, Jesus tells us, hey, instead of focusing on the things that other people have going on in their life, log and speck is the passage, why don't you focus on your own spiritual health, your own emotional health, your own life, so that you're better equipped to serve those around you. And brilliant relational advice. Thank you, Jesus. And so, but the idea is this one's for you. And then look forward, not back. So in each of these topics, whether we're talking about attraction, today, chapter 2, we're talking about dating and pursuing one another. A lot of times there's baggage or some things that we're bringing into the room, and if you're not careful, enemy there's a place of condemnation or a place of shame. If you feel any of those things are not from God. You feel afraid, that's not from God. The idea is for you to look forward. Hey, what does God have for me from this day forward? If I were actually to decide to do it God's way, how much different would my life look if I submitted and surrendered the area of romantic relationships to the Lord? And so that's the invitation. And so we're talking about dating today. And dating, there's a lot of opinions on dating. and dating has evolved quite a bit over time. Old school dating was, like you ask someone, hey, will you go out with me? Which is weird vernacular that we use that. But it was like, will you go out with me? Or like even earlier than that is when you had, like you passing the note. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you love me? Do you want to be my friend? At any given time during this series, I will pop off in song. And the genre may change too, so I'm just giving you guys a heads up. Great song, by the way. And back in our day, we had like the folding was really important of the note that was passed. Like you knew how serious they were based on the fold. Like, wow. That's attractive. That's a good fold, It's just like yes or no. Are we doing this thing? Are we in a relationship? And things like phone calls. I mean, come on. Old school, you go out to dinner, you go out to a movie, like you're planning these things in advance. Mixtapes. For all my children in the 80s and the 90s, mixtapes, for some of you it was a tape. It was an actual tape. For some it was the CD. We did the CDs, and you had, I don't know, you had Casey and JoJo on there. Come on. Oh, my life. That was so good. Usher, Strawberry Wine, I'm preaching now. I'm like I'm flowing in the spirit. But like whatever your thing was that just made you like, hey, I just want to express these things to you through song. And so when Brooke and I were dating, the way that we communicated was AOL Instant Messenger. So before Snapchat or before any of that, y'all, how did we do it? AIM. We had AOL Instant Messenger, and you had to be sitting. We had Dell laptops. That's how you know how old we are. You don't even know what Dell is. Gateway computer. Like we had these Dell laptops in college, and No, they were desktops, and so we had like the Messenger app up, and you had your little people list. So you had like friends and followers and things like that, and you could tell if somebody was on. Like it would give you an indication. Hey, they're sitting at their computer. You're like, yeah. So you slide into them DMs before you had DMs. And so you're just like you're talking to people, and you could give an away message. Away message was so important. It's like, I'm at the gym. I was like, I see that, girl. I'm about to be at the gym too. If it was real generic, you're real sad. You didn't know where to go. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to stalk them. And so that was our experience. And today, dating looks like Tinder, looks like Bumble. I'm looking at some of y'all's facial expressions to see if you blink or look at somebody right now. Hinge, Match.com. Like it looks like, Netflix and chill. It looks very different than, hey, let's plan a whole evening and do this whole thing. It looks like ghosting is a massive part of relationships today. Submarining somebody is a massive part of relationships today. If you're old and you have no idea what I'm saying, just Google it. But the whole idea is the dating landscape has changed, but longing for love is as stronger than ever. And how to navigate the complexities has never been more confusing because of the time and space that we find ourselves. There is, for many of us, there's a physical component to pursuit and to dating season of life. And now there's like a whole nother arena in the area of the digital landscape. But the Bible has a lot to teach us about pursuit of one another and doing it God's way. In Songs 2, 8 through 9, it says this: "Listen, my beloved, look, here he comes." This is the Shulamite woman, "leaping across the mountains. Oh, he's bounding over them hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice." Kind of creepy. But he is bounding over them hills. He's like a young gazelle, like a young stag. Looks like this. "What's up, girl? What's up? We're going to dinner. I'm about to take you to Texas Roadhouse. Let's go." And so he's there. The Bible says that he's there. She's excited, and we know she's excited because she's speaking in short staccato sentences. It's a way, in written form to communicate anticipation and excitement. He's pumped because he's leaping and bounding and he's galloping, and so he's peering through the lattice. Only cool because there's mutual attraction. But can I be honest and pastoral for a minute? Don't peer through people's windows, okay, or lattice. You will get shot, or something will happen. Like don't do none of that. And so even if there is mutual attraction, just good to just go to the front door. And so here's how we know right off the bat. It just kind of gives us a kind of a framework for how we pursue one another and how we navigate dating season. So how do you know if you should date someone? Number one, for all my single people, dating season of life, you enjoy being around them. Some of you are married and you're disappointed with this message because you think it's all about dating and singleness. But hey, listen, if you're married, are you enjoyable to be around? Okay, so just apply it to your own relationship. But the idea is, do you enjoy being around this person? Are you avoiding them? I've been with somebody before who was dating somebody and they got off the phone and they were like, man, it's like, probably should maybe break up with that person, bro. You don't like spending time with them or talking to them. It's like, it's a weird dynamic. But people don't know how to end relationships today. And this is the reason why we have things like ghosting and submarining, things like that, is because people don't express expectations clearly, and because people blur the lines in the relationships, and it makes it hard for them to end it. Physical intimacy precedes other things, and it's out of order. It's not the way that God's designed. And so there are things like soul ties. There's things like, man, and you don't know if you're in love with that person or in love with that person's body. So it's really hard to end the relationship. And in the passage, it says that this relationship is played out in front of friends and in front of community. She actually says to her friends, "Behold, look, there he is." And she's evaluating this relationship in the public square. We mentioned this last week. Really healthy to do. Matter of fact, anytime you're dating someone and you feel like you're pulled away to a place of isolation, they're making you kind of cut ties with family and friends and people who love you and who love Jesus, like it's a giant red flag. And so for many of us, we've privatized the dating experience where we're operating in isolation. This is part of our story. navigating dating season of life, there were times where we never really clearly defined the boundaries, never really clearly defined the expectations. And so it's really important that we do that. Because dating is not a status, it's a process. And biblical dating is really, it's a means to an end. It's a vehicle, and the point is marriage, not recreational dating, not making out with people. It's like, the point is, does this lead anywhere? That's the point in what we see in Scripture. And so it's a process of discernment to see, what kind of person do I want to spend my life with? What kind of people am I attracted to? What kind of people do I enjoy to spend time with? And again, doing that in the context of friends and family is what is biblical and what we see over and over again, because it's super healthy. And so I know for a fact that there are people who have anxiety around dating in the context of church. Like, I would date, but I don't want to date anybody at church because I love this church, man. And then if we break up, we got to decide, like, who goes to that church? Listen, that is the beauty of having 2 locations and 6 service times. Hit me with that 5 p.m. It's a whole new world. But listen, also, if there's a way to navigate pursuit and dating season of life in a way that doesn't make it awkward when you see somebody out in public, in a way that is life-giving, in a way that serves the other, even if it doesn't work out, there's a way to do that. And again, what we see in Song of Songs is that God's way is better than the world's way. That's the invitation. And I know everything that I teach in this series feels countercultural. But also, the way of Jesus is countercultural. And if you want to be the most attractive version of yourself, being the healthiest spiritually, emotionally, physically, you're never more like Jesus than when you're spiritually healthy, when you're emotionally healthy, when you're after the things of God. And so that's the idea, is that we're pursuing things. Sometimes things like physical intimacy and marriage, these aren't rules just for the sake of rules. God has designed sex. Sex is fun, and it releases chemicals and hormones in your body. And on a smaller and more innocent level, like you're in middle school, high school season, and like first time you get your girlfriend or something, you're like, hey, and you just like hold hands. And you're like, ooh, like, like that was cool. Like, I'm gonna do that again. You're sweaty. You're like, I don't know why I'm sweaty all of a sudden. Like, I don't know why I don't know how to talk all of a sudden. And God has created that, but He's also created and fashioned for us some guardrails, some boundaries for human flourishing that would allow, if you would prioritize spiritual growth, and if you would prioritize like learning emotionally, like, is this someone that I want to connect with on a deeper level, then the other will come. We'll talk about the other next week. But the idea is to spend time evaluating the person before you get more serious in the relationship. So do you really like the person? That's important. And then create some boundaries. Here's some great ideas for you to establish in the relationships that you have. These are dating relationship season of life, but again, for my married people, I can spin it for you. So here's the first one. Be wise with your time. Be very wise with your time. What amount of time do you spend together in person? And now, more importantly than ever, digitally. If you're like, well, we're not in person, but we're just texting back and forth all day, or we're sending videos back and forth all day, we're on some app back and forth all day. Again, limit the amount of time. What is a good amount of time for me to spend so I don't abdicate responsibility to friends, family, other relationships, things that I got going on with school, work, I could still be in pursuit of this individual. And for my married people, be wise with your time. Do I have time that I spend with my spouse just for us to build relational intimacy and to build emotional intimacy? Am I intentional about calling or texting or staying in touch and communicating? Here's the second one. Be wise with your talk. The power of life and death in your tongue, the Bible tells us. And so don't use words to manipulate, control, try and artificially sustain a relationship. Don't do it. Ain't nothing worse than being on that first date and just shooting your shot a little too early. You know what I mean? And just be like, I love you. And she's like, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Hold them cards. Hold them. Play those later. Like, you got to read the room a little bit better. But the idea is wise with your talk. Again, not over communicating, not over being attached emotionally too soon. The idea is, listen, you're not going to enjoy this. It takes time. It's slow. It's a process. And what you talk about initially looks different than what you talk about as a season as you're heading into marriage. Here's the third one. Be wise with your touch. Time, talk, touch. God created sex. Again, it's good. He created it to be inside of the boundaries of a covenant relationship between one man and one woman. We're going to talk about that next week. Genesis 2, Jesus affirms it. In Matthew 19, I could go on, but I'm not. We have a whole week dedicated to it. But the idea is we predetermine boundaries, time, talk, touch. What are the boundaries? What are the rules of engagement? And some of you are here and you're thinking, it's too late for me. What if it's too late for me? What if I've already stepped outside of the boundaries that I know that I should have? Listen, the good news of Jesus is that every single person in this room, like all of us, have things. None are without sin. This is the reason why you need Jesus, by the way. This is the reason for the gospel, is that all of us have things that we need to bring before him. And he desires to take those things, redeem, restore, give you over to life and a purpose. And again, forgiveness, salvation, all this is wrapped up in his finished work, not our merit. We all have baggage. Brooke and I, we were at Charlotte Airport this week, coming back from a meeting. And Charlotte Airport is a hot mess, y'all. Like it's been, how long have they been working? It's been working on it for like a decade. It's looking better, though. It's looking better. And so when you're at the airport and you're looking around, you go to baggage claim area. You go to get your bags for all the check bag people. And you're standing there. And everyone is like real passive aggressive. Everybody's trying to stand in the same spot where the bags come down the line. Like you can't wait 5 seconds for it to go like right here. Like, come on, bro. And so everybody's jockeying for position. But what I noticed is everybody's bag's different. Like I got this leather duffel bag. It's kind of it's cool. It looks great. It was a gift from my wife a few years ago. I love the bag. Looks cool. Kind of the worst because it's heavy, y'all. You're just carrying around this duffel bag the whole time. She's got this hard shell like carry-on, and then she's got like a, I don't know what like toiletry bag game. It's real strong. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, where you got all the stuff. You're like, I'm bringing all my stuff. We're going to check that bag. She's got that. But what I noticed about the airport is everybody's bags look different. Different shapes, different sizes, but everybody has them. Ain't nobody in that airport don't have baggage. Same thing's true in the area of relationships. And it can be romantic. It can also just be, man, we're all in here, drama, trauma, daddy and mama. We all got stuff in our life that we bring into the context of relationships that we need Jesus, honestly, to do what only Jesus can do in our life. And so the first question, the first part of this framework is this someone worth pursuing? Is this someone that I want to spend time with? If you're already in a marriage, how do I be the person that is enjoyable to be around? How am I doing and investing in the life of my spouse? One of the best ways to know, it's a great tool for evaluating relationship is time and distance. So, absence makes the heart grow fonder. If you're in a dating season of life, you're trying to discern, is this someone that I really want to be with? Spend some time not with that individual and see what happens. As part of Brooke and our story, she tried to hook me up with a roommate for the longest time. It was real awkward for 6 months, and she did not discern well that I was in hot pursuit of her. And so she was just trying to hook me up, and a roommate like me was getting real awkward. And so finally in spring semester of freshman year, I was like, hey, I like you. I had to pull her out in the hallway. I'll never forget it. I pulled her out in the hallway because she kept talking to me about a roommate. I was like, hey, by the way, I like you. No, I've not ever hung out. If you were paying attention, I've never hung out here. And so we began to talk. And I invited her. There was a group of us that were a group of guys that were headed down. It was spring break. We were going somewhere. And we're like, hey, we're headed down there. You guys get a place. We'll go hang out while we go there together. And she did it. She actually came. And I was like, hey, let's go. And so by the end of the week, I locked it in, y'all. I locked it in. We coming back. I'm like, I'm about to shoot my shot. We're sitting there talking. She remembers it differently than I did. She's not here today. She ain't holding a microphone, so you're going to hear my version. But at some point, we'll just have a back and forth. But we're standing there, and I remember kissing her. She said I did it in front of her friends. Whatever. Don't remember that part. But the idea was, she was like, well, you locked it in because I just don't go around kissing people we're officially, we're dating. We're doing this thing at this point. And so we get back to school, and I really love who she is. I'm like, I could marry someone like this, if not this girl. And I'm excited, but I'm also like a freshman. So I begin to do the math, and I'm like, yo, I've got to get my undergrad and my master's, and I got plans. And I'm like, this doesn't fit my timeline. And so I go to her, and I said, I really like you, but I don't want this to be, like, I don't want to ruin this. And I'm afraid I'll ruin it for a couple reasons. And she didn't know this, but I wasn't ready. But another reason was like, the timing and everything. And I was like, hey, can we be friends? And she was like, you are a moron. And I was like, I concur. I am a moron. And she's broken and I'm broken. And I go to class that night and I'm talking to my buddy. He's like, what is going on? And I told him, I said, man, I just dumped my wife. And I said, just like that. And so it didn't take me very long, y'all, again, time and distance, to figure out, hey, I really want to be in a relationship with her. I really want to pursue this relationship. And so we patched things up pretty quickly. But the idea was there was a better way to do it. I navigated all of it poorly. I got plenty of material on what not to do in the area of dating relationships and relationships in general. But the first part of everything is like, do I enjoy being around them? Here's the second part. This is verses 10 through 13. My beloved spoke and said to me, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See, the winter is past, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing has come, the cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit, the blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, saying again, arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one. This is Solomon speaking to the Shulamite woman. What time of year is it? Springtime. There's new life. Things are flourishing. There's a reference to the garden, and all this is happening. So how do I know if I should date someone? Do I enjoy being around them? Number two, when I'm around them, is it life-giving? Is it life-giving? And again, you could flip it. If you're married and you're already in the context of a relationship, am I life-giving? Am I someone who's adding value to people's life? Am I helping people to become more like Jesus? And if you're in a season trying to gauge whether or not this is someone to be in relationship with, does this person make me more like Jesus? Does this person bring out the best in me? Chemistry is great, but is there fruit being produced because of this relationship? Because again, the most attractive version of you is the version of you that looks like Christ. And so the whole idea for human flourishing, the whole idea for wholeness is to become like Jesus. This is why he invited us to follow him. Because that is the path that leads to the abundant life that he purchased for us. So don't miss it. For all my people who are single, you're like, none of this applies to me. Don't waste the single season. Leverage it. Become the person that you're looking for is looking for. The idea is, we never think of it that way. We always have like in our minds who it is that we want to marry, who we want to end up with, instead of thinking, who do I want to be when that moment comes? Which is a way better question to ask. And again, if we're running after the things of God, if we're running after the things of Jesus, this is a football term, but as you're running after him, you just put your head on a swivel. Put your head on a swivel. And it's like, hey, who around me is running after the same things that I'm running after? All of a sudden, oh, look, there's an old girl over there. She's running after the same things I am. I like her. We're going to run next to one another. That's the whole idea. And in single season, work on yourself. Also, listen, if you're single, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being single. We serve a God who was single. The Apostle Paul writes 2/3 of the New Testament. Single. He also invites us into singleness. I ain't about that. That's not my gift. That's somebody's gift. You know what I'm saying? But for those who are in that season, it is not like it's not a less than. You're not broken. I know your aunt keeps hitting you up every time you go to a wedding or something like that, and they're like, "When you go get it?" You know, like just focus on you. Again, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health, becoming the best version of you. I want to follow Jesus. And then as you follow Jesus, listen, just trust him with your future, trust him with your marriage, trust him with your sexuality, trust him with every part of who you are, and watch what happens. And so it's so important. Look at verse 13. The guy begins to speak with real clarity. He says this, Solomon says this to the Shulamite woman. He says, arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. But because he is galloping up to the front gate, and when he gets to the front gate, he speaks with real clarity, real boldness. He knows what he wants. And it's an invitation, right? He's not demanding anything, but it is an invitation, and it's real clear. And so I love it because in this passage, he's the one initiating. And does it mean that only men can initiate? No, because you see the Shulamite woman, she's in this passage, she shares how she feels. You see in the book of Ruth is a great example. There's another example there. But I would say surveys still say women would love to be pursued. Women would love for men to initiate. Fellas, initiate with real clarity. Don't walk up to a girl and be like, hey, so I was thinking maybe if we could, if you're up to it, if you really want to, like, watch Netflix or something, like, no game plan at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, he comes up with real, he's like, he gallops up to that door, and he's like, hey, girl, let's go. I got us reservations. We're doing this, 7 p.m., Thursday night. He's got a game plan. And so how do you know if you want to date someone? Do I enjoy being around them? When I'm around them, is it life-giving? Number 3, do they communicate with clarity and vulnerability? Which is what we see in the passage. Guys, ladies, express your intentions in the relationship. Unmet expectations are often the issue. Don't leave each other hanging. What are you trying to get out of the relationship, and then verbalize it so that you both know what you're trying to get out of the relationship. You go through 2 or 3 dates, fellas, and you're really enjoying it. You have to say it. So again, don't make them guess. Be like, you're sitting in the truck or whatever. You're like, look, oh man, this is going really good. I like her. She's great. It's great to hang out with. I love her family, love her stories. It's really cool. She smells good. Wow. I feel a little tingly. You know what I mean? All these things, but you never verbalize those things. Instead, spending some time and stopping and saying, hey, listen, I really enjoy spending time with you. It's been 2, 3 dates, but I don't want to waste your time. Because again, dating is a process. It's a vehicle to an end game, and that end game is marriage. And so I don't want to waste. I don't want to play games. This isn't about me going through the motions. This isn't about recreation. And so if you're interested, I'm interested in pursuing you further, spending more time together, getting to know you on a deeper level. I'm just communicating to you, that's where I'm at. It will blow her mind if you say those things. It will absolutely blow her mind. So begin to just speak with real clarity. Look at verses 14 and 15. It says, my dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding places on the mountains. He's talking to her. Show me your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom. So I want to focus on the dove part. There's a change in metaphor. He's not a gazelle by the lattice now. She's a dove, tender animal, high up in the inaccessible rocks, hidden away. And the whole idea is vulnerability. He's acknowledging how vulnerable this moment is. And he's basically saying, I'm asking you to step out of a place of safety to trust me with kind of this next phase of the relationship. Share more of who you are with me. And he understands that there's a risk and that, man, a lot of women have been hurt by previous relationships, unmet expectations, things that have happened to people, self-inflicted wounds, a lack of communication, all of it. And so for him, he initiates with intention. Listen to what he does in this passage. Fellas, he initiates with intention. He speaks with clarity. He goes first with vulnerability. He compliments her, and he shares how he feels. My male brain is about to explode right now. He does all that in this passage, and then he invites and he waits. And this is the dance of dating and pursuit. It is the dance of risk and response. I'm going to risk something. I'm going to put myself out there. Sometimes the answer is, no, I'm good. You're feeling something I'm not feeling. I swipe the opposite direction, right? So that, sometimes that's the answer. And it's risk and response. And so it's more risk as you develop further intimacy in the relationship. Again, you don't lead with the heaviest parts of your story. That is really weird. Don't do that. Turn off. Usually we lead with superficial things like favorite sports team, and here's what I like to eat. Oh, you like music? I like music too. It's that's what we talk about. And then it gets deeper. So all of a sudden it's hey, here's a little bit about my family. Here's where I grew up. Here's some of the things that I've experienced. And then it just gets deeper over the course. And at some point you have to gauge, is this someone that I really want to pursue, and I really want to let my guard down even more emotionally? Because there is an emotional attachment that takes place as you begin to let your guard down to begin to share. Married people, there is an emotional attachment that happens as you let your guard down. So don't overshare with someone of the opposite sex, right? It's intimacy that's dedicated and designed for marriage. So as you're pursuing it, you just give over more and more as you pursue it. And Solomon, he acknowledges that she's not like a deer or a stag, but he pictures her like a dove. And it's a tender animal. It's delicate. Here's what 1 Peter says in 3:7. Husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel. I'll unpack that. Since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Ladies, he's not saying that you're not strong. He's not saying that you're not equal. He's saying there's a difference between men and women. There's a delicacy that marks you. I don't dig holes with my iPhone. That doesn't mean my shovel is more valuable. So there's a difference between the two. And that's what he's trying to say. He even says this, showing honor to the woman. Like we're serving with kindness, we're serving with gentleness. And so approach in an understanding way. He's very intentional with this moment, with the approach. And I think we ought to be as well. When Brooke and I, when we're talking to couples in premarital and we're encouraging them to make sure that they're having conversations around emotional intimacy, especially as they're navigating engagement season of life and heading into marriage, we're like, hey, fully unpack like the fullest depths of who you are emotionally now. Everything you've experienced, everything you've gone through, past relationships, again, things that have happened to you, self-inflicted wounds, all of that. But also just kind of like thought life and all that. Fully unpack all of that as you head into a season. Because what our real desire for every single one of us is to be fully known and fully loved. That's like our real desire. And sometimes we hold the cards a little bit and instead of giving people the opportunity to extend forgiveness, instead of people giving them the opportunity to do exactly what Christ has done for each of us, man, while you were still a sinner, Christ died for you. Not when you were at your best, but when you were at your worst. And listen, again, every single one of us, we have something that we're going to need forgiveness in. Every single one of us, again, we have things that we're going to have to navigate. And as we navigate those things, we navigate them together in the context of relationships. It's so important. And so be completely vulnerable. And again, the idea is to be completely safe in that space. And the thought is, well, what if they reject me when I'm honest about the things that I've gone through and experienced? That's on them. Not you. And if they do, good for you and good that relationship didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Because again, Christ likeness, and this is just the encouragement if you're a follower of Jesus, is to forgive. Is to forgive. Is to create space and room for the people that we love and want to do life with to experience the grace of God. And so I'm going to end with this passage. This is Song of Songs 2:16 through 17. Right there at the end, he says, my beloved is mine. Or she says, my beloved is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on this rugged hills. And the passage goes on, leads us into chapter 3 of their wedding day and their wedding night. But the whole idea is these two are running after the same things. These two are focused on what they're bringing into the relationship. Right before this, there's talk about, hey, they tell their community, their friends and family, be on watch for the foxes who are in the garden who come and make a mess of what, like this beautiful moment. That was just a metaphor of saying all the things that could ruin our relationship with you. Will you pray with us? Will you walk with us? Will you guard us through that? And that's just great practical advice for those of you who are in relationship. You need people praying for you. If you don't have intercessors, if you don't have people praying for you in your relationship, your marriage, your dating season of life, and all of that, you desperately need that. You need some people that you can walk alongside of. You need a small group. Church is great on Sundays. You need some biblical community, people who know you, love Jesus, and are walking alongside of you. It is so important for relational health, and it matters. And so ask and invite some people into your life so that you can experience wholeness, so that you can experience healing. Les Parrott, who writes the SYMBIS curriculum, him and his wife, they're clinical psychologists, but they're also Christians, and they write the curriculum that we use for premarital. He says this. He says, if you try to build intimacy with another person before you've gotten whole on your own, all your relationships become an attempt to complete yourself. So again, this one's for you. This was for you. Am I the type of person that's enjoyable to be around? Am I life-giving? When I walk into a space, when I walk into a room, does it lift the room? Does it pull the room down? What does it look like for my community? What does it look like for the people that I love most? There's an invitation. There's an invitation to more. And do I communicate with clarity and with vulnerability? Am I honest about where I'm at? And because otherwise it's just so exhausting faking it. And at some point, 7 years, 15, 28 years down the road, you will deal with it. The idea is to deal with it right now. It's an invitation.